Reading is one of the fastest ways to level up a language, but most people who try quit on page one, not because they're not capable, because they picked the wrong book. Here's how it usually goes. You decide you're finally going to do it. You pull up Amazon and buy a real book, a novel, maybe something you've already read in English. You're excited, you open to page one, and you understand almost nothing. A few paragraphs in, you've looked up 20 words, you've lost the thread of the story, and it's making you feel completely incompetent, maybe a little hopeless. So you set it down and it sits there on page one, quietly intimidating you for the next 6 months. If you can relate, I want to be clear about something. The problem isn't you. You just started at the wrong level. Think about it. If you wanted to take up running, how would you start? If you're totally new, you'd start with a jog around the block. Buying a novel as your first read is like starting with a 5K. In theory, it shouldn't be that hard, but without the proper on-ramp, it feels impossible. And that's exactly the kind of unexpected wall that makes people quit before they ever get going. Reading is genuinely one of the most powerful tools you have for learning a language. We covered exactly why in the last video, but only if you start in the right place. So today I'm going to show you exactly what to read when you're starting out, how to actually read it without burning out, and how to fit it into your day so that it actually sticks. Done right, reading shouldn't feel like a wall. It should feel like a challenge that you actually enjoy. So let's fix that. Here's the ladder I've used to start reading in every language I've learned: Italian, Spanish, German, and French. Beginning from the absolute bottom rung. When you're truly starting out, you want the simplest material you can find. And I mean simple. Children's books, fairy tales, stuff written for little kids. And I know that might sound silly or even a little discouraging, like you're going backwards, but there's a real strategy here. When you read a story you already know, say a fairy tale you grew up with, you're not spending any energy figuring out what's happening. You already know the wolf is going to blow the house down. So all your brain power goes towards the language instead of the plot. That familiarity is built in context, and context is what lets you understand words you've technically never learned. It does the heavy lifting for you. And honestly, if children's books aren't really your thing, that's fine too. The actual requirement isn't that it's for kids, it's that it's simple enough to follow when you're first starting out. So if you can find simple material on a topic you actually like, great. The for kids part isn't the point, simplicity is. Once that starts feeling manageable, the next rung is graded readers. These are books written specifically for language learners at each level, so they're built to be comprehensible from day one. The ones I've personally used are the Lingo Mastery short stories. They've got collections for something like 10 languages, so odds are they've got one for yours. Each story is short, usually right around 5 minutes, and it comes with a list of the tricky words and a summary at the end in both languages, so you're never totally stranded. They were the backbone of my early reading in every single language. If I'm starting a new one, that's almost always where I'll begin. And then the rung above that, once the short stories feel comfortable, is books written for young teens. Think books that would be on a middle school summer reading list. It's a real step up from kids' books, but it's still written to be accessible, and honestly, some of them are genuinely entertaining. A good way to find these is just to search most popular books for teens in, and then your language or the country. You'll get more age-appropriate material that challenges you without burying you. So that's the ladder. Dead simple, familiar stories, then graded readers, then young adult books. Each rung gets you ready for the next. And the whole time, the goal is the same. Stay at a level where you're challenged, but not drowning. One quick thing before I get into the techniques. If this is the kind of practical, no fluff language stuff that you want more of, subscribe and stick around. This reading series alone has a few more videos coming, and there's plenty more where this came from. Okay, back to it. Picking the right book is half the battle. The other half is how you read it. So here are some tips that I wish someone gave me when I first started out. And most of them come down to one idea: protecting your momentum. Tip one, don't worry about how fast you're going. It's tempting to want to speed through because you want to get out of this beginner stage as quickly as possible. But just finishing the book isn't the goal. Understanding it is. If it's taking you a while to get through a short story, who cares? Nobody's timing you. Honestly, this is the one I always have to keep top of mind myself. It's so natural to start measuring progress in pages per day, but the second you do, you turn something enjoyable into a chore, and chores are what we quit. Tip two, and this is the big one, don't look up every word. I know the instinct. You hit a word you don't know, and it feels almost irresponsible to just keep going. What if you never learn that word? I always have to remind myself that if this word is really that important, I'll see it plenty more times. Because if you think about the math for a second, say you understand 85% of a 1,000-word story, which is a great level to be reading at. That still leaves 150 words you don't know. If you stop to look up every single one, you're interrupting yourself 150 times in one short story. Your flow is gone, the enjoyment is gone, and you're going to dread picking that book back up. So instead, only stop for a word if you genuinely can't follow what's happening without it. Everything else, let it ride. Trust that the context and just seeing these words over and over again will fill in the gaps, because it will. Tip 3 ties right into that, the level you're aiming for. You don't need to understand every word. You're shooting for somewhere around 70 to 80% of the text. Enough that you're comfortably following along, but with enough you still don't know that you're growing. If you understand literally everything, it's too easy. Bump up to the next rung. If you lost every other sentence, it's too hard, drop back down. Somewhere in that 70 to 80% range is the sweet spot. And tip 4 is just a practical one that makes everything else easier. Think about reading on a Kindle, or honestly, even just the Kindle app on your phone works. Here's why I like it. When you do hit a word you actually need, you just tap it and the translation pops up. And you're back to reading a second later. No setting the book down, no typing into a translator, no losing your place. It takes away enough of that friction that you're a lot more likely to keep going. Definitely not required. I've read my share of physical books too, but it smooths out the whole thing. So that's the playbook. Don't worry about speed. Don't look up every word. Aim for that 70 to 80% zone. Cut out the friction wherever you can. And notice every one of these comes back to the same thing. Keeping reading enjoyable so that you actually want to come back tomorrow. So we've covered what to read and how to read it. The last piece is when. Actually fitting it into your life. And reading has one catch that listening doesn't. If you've seen my other videos, you know I'm a huge believer in stacking your listening onto the downtime in your day. Your commute, the gym, doing the dishes, walking the dog. Your ears are free during all that, so you can rack up hours without carving out a single extra minute. But reading is different. Reading needs your eyes. You can't read a book while driving or folding laundry. So this is the one part of the process where you might actually have to set aside some dedicated time. Now, before that scares anyone off, we're not talking about much. Remember, reading isn't replacing your listening. It's the cherry on top of your listening. Small, but it makes everything better. So if your daily goal is, say, 30 minutes of input, reading might just be 10 of those 30. A small slice. The point isn't to read for an hour, unless you want to, then have at it. But otherwise, it's to read a little consistently. And the trick is still to anchor it to something you already do every day. So you don't have to rely on motivation. A few that have worked for me really well: first thing in the morning, 10 or 15 minutes with your book instead of immediately reaching for your phone. Or right before you head out the door. I used to get ready for work a little early and just sit on the couch and read until I had to leave. And the easiest one for a lot of people, right before bed. It's a great way to wind down and replaces the scrolling that's probably keeping you up anyways. You don't need all of those, you just need one. Pick the moment that fits your life, attach reading to it, and let it become automatic. The same way brushing your teeth is automatic. That's how a habit actually sticks, not through willpower, but through routine. So that's how you actually start reading in another language without bouncing off page 1. Quick recap: start way simpler than you want to. Familiar, easy stories where the context does the heavy lifting. Then climb the ladder. Graded readers like the Lingo Mastery short stories, then books for teens. When you read, protect your momentum. Forget about speed. Don't look up every word. Stay in that 70 to 80% zone. And fit it into your life by anchoring it to a small daily slice of something you're already doing. Do that, and reading stops being the intimidating thing on your shelf and becomes the thing that quietly accelerates everything else. Now, at some point, the beginner stuff is going to start feeling very manageable, almost easy. And that's a good problem to have. It means you're ready for real books. Real novels written for adults, written by native speakers. That's a big, exciting jump, and it comes with its own set of challenges that catch a lot of people off guard. So that's exactly what we're covering in the next reading video. And just after that, I'll get to the text and audio technique I hinted at back at the start. The one that completely changes how fast all of this works. So subscribe and stick around for the rest of the series, step by step, at your own pace, no textbooks, no stress.